The ship shook again. Thyra Valsorin grabbed the edge of her command chair as sparks flew from the ceiling. Another explosion, another system failing, another piece of her dying. Fleet falling apart. She was the fleet commander of the Cathari Ascendancy. Once that title meant something, once she commanded 200 beautiful ships filled with scholars, scientists, and keepers of knowledge. Her people had traveled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They collected stories. They preserved histories. They kept the memories of civilizations that had turned to dust long ago. Now she commanded 47 broken ships. The rest were gone, destroyed by the Dravith hegemony. Commander, her second officer said. His voice was tired. They were all tired. The reactor on the Whispered Truth is failing. They have maybe 6 hours before complete shutdown. Thyra closed her 4 eyes and took a deep breath. 6 hours, another ship would go dark, another 1,000 of her people would be left floating in the cold emptiness of space. The Dravith had been hunting them for 18 cycles. The Cathari had never been warriors. They had no weapons beyond simple ceremonial blades. Why would they need weapons? They were librarians. They were teachers. They kept the peace by keeping knowledge alive. But the Dravith did not want peace. They wanted conquest. They wanted to burn every world that would not bow to them. And when the Cathari refused to hand over their archives, the Dravith decided to burn them too. Thyra opened her eyes and looked at the star map floating in front of her. Red dots everywhere. Dravith patrol routes, Dravith supply lines, Dravith death. But there, in an unexplored corner of the galaxy, was a small yellow star. Her navigation computer had found it in its last working moments before it died. Primitive system, nothing important. What do we know about this place? Thyra asked, pointing at the yellow dot. Her science officer pulled up the data. A Class 4 industrial civilization. They call their world Earth. They have basic space travel, chemical rockets. Only no faster than light capability. They discovered radio waves about 150 of their years ago. Primitives, someone muttered. Primitives with metal, Thyra said. Primitives with factories, primitives who might be able to patch our hulls and give us enough power to run for one more system. No one argued. They were too tired to argue, too tired to hope for anything better than one more day of survival. Thyra gave the order. 47 ships turned toward the small yellow star. The journey took 3 days, 3 days of watching more systems fail, 3 days of rationing food and water, 3 days of funeral rites for those who did not survive. When they finally reached the system, Thyra stood on the bridge and looked at the blue planet on her view screen. It was beautiful. Oceans covered most of its surface. White clouds swirled over green and brown land masses. It looked peaceful. It looked alive. Scan for population centers, she ordered. Find somewhere with heavy industry, somewhere with shipyards. The scan took only moments. The planet was covered with cities, billions of life forms. And there, on a chain of islands in a vast ocean, was a concentration of ships and metal and manufacturing capability. That is our destination, Thyra said. Take us down. 47 Cathari vessels broke through Earth's atmosphere. They must have looked terrifying to the beings below, massive ships scarred and burned, trailing smoke and debris. Alien Invaders descending from the sky. Thyra expected panic. She expected weapons. She expected the primitives to run and hide and scream. She did not expect boats. Small vessels appeared on the water. Below. They were not warships. They were simple boats with humans standing on their decks looking up at the alien fleet, with nothing but curiosity on their faces. They are not fleeing, her second officer said, confused. No, Thyra agreed. They are not. She ordered her ship to land on the water near the largest concentration of boats. The landing was rough. Half her stabilizers were broken. The ship hit the surface hard, sending waves crashing in all directions. When Thyra lowered the boarding ramp, she found a small boat already waiting. A human female stood at its front. She was short compared to Cathari standards. She wore strange blue clothing covered in stains and grease. Her hair was pulled back from her face and her eyes were sharp and curious. Thyra stepped off the ramp. She had not eaten properly in days. Behind her, more Cathari followed, all of them exhausted, all of them expecting to die. The human female looked at Thyra for a long moment, then she looked at the damaged ship, then she looked back at Thyra. So the human said, "What's broken?" Thyra blinked all four of her eyes. I'm sorry, Thyra said. Your ship, the human said, pointing. Half your hull is melted, your rear thrusters are completely gone, and I am pretty sure that smoke should not be coming out of there. She pointed at a crack in the ship's side. So what is broken? Where do we start? Thyra did not understand. You are not afraid of us? She asked. The human laughed. It was a strange sound, warm, unexpected. Lady, I have been a mechanic in the United States Navy for 15 years. I have seen things catch fire that should not be able to catch fire. You look like you need help and I fix things, so let me ask again, what is broken? Thyra looked at this small creature with her stained clothing and her confident smile. Behind the human, more boats were arriving. More humans were climbing out, carrying tools and equipment. They were shouting to each other, pointing at the Cathari ships, already making plans. No fear, no hesitation, just a simple question and a willingness to help. Thyra felt something crack inside her chest, something she had been holding tight for 18 cycles, something that might have been hope. Everything, she said, her voice broke. Everything is broken. The human female nodded. She reached out and put her small hand on Thyra's arm. The touch was warm and solid and real. Then let us get to work, she said. My name is Maria Santos. Welcome to Earth. Behind them, the sun set over the Pacific Ocean. The sky turned orange and gold and red. And for the first time in 18 cycles, Fleet Commander Thyra Val Soren of the Cathari Ascendancy allowed herself to believe that tomorrow might actually come. 3 days after the Cathari landed on Earth, Thyra stood in the middle of the Pearl Harbor Naval shipyard and watched chaos unfold around her. Humans were everywhere. They crawled over her ships like insects. They argued with each other in loud voices. They laughed and shouted and pointed at things. They drank dark, bitter liquid from paper cups and ate food wrapped in paper while they worked. It was the most disorganized thing Thyra had ever seen. It was also the most effective. Maria Santos walked up to her, wiping her hands on a dirty cloth. The human woman had not slept in 2 days. Thyra could see the exhaustion in her eyes, but she was still smiling. Good news, Maria said. we figured out your reactor problem. One of my guys, a kid named Tommy from California, he looked at your power system and found a bottleneck. He says you have been running at 40% efficiency for probably 600 years. That is impossible. Our engineers designed that system. It is optimal. It was optimal for the technology you had when you built it, but technology changes. Tommy posted the problem on the internet, and about 50,000 engineers around the world started working on it. Someone in Japan found the fix. We are installing it now. You shared our technology with your entire planet. Maria shrugged. We shared your problem. Problems get solved faster when more people work on them. That is how humans do things. Thyra did not know what to say. The Cathari guarded their knowledge carefully. They shared it only with those who proved worthy. The idea of just giving information to everyone was strange and frightening, but she could not argue with the results. In 3 days, the humans had done more repairs than Cathari engineers had managed in 18 cycles. They did not follow the proper procedures. They did not use the correct tools. They improvised, they adapted, they made things work using methods that should have been impossible. One human engineer had fixed a broken navigation computer using parts from something called a PlayStation. Another had sealed a hull breach with a substance called duct tape and promised it would hold until they could do proper repairs. A third had improved the life support system by connecting it to a device designed for growing plants indoors. None of it made sense. All of it worked. A loud noise made Thyra turn. A flying machine was landing nearby. Humans called it a helicopter. More humans climbed out carrying boxes and equipment. Maria looked at the new arrivals and nodded. That is the team from Germany. They are bringing better welding equipment. And I think the Japanese delegation should be here soon with replacement parts for your shield generators. You contacted other nations. You are the biggest thing that has ever happened to our planet. Every country wants to be part of this. A tall human male approached them. He wore a uniform covered in medals and ribbons. His hair was gray and his face was lined with age, but his eyes were sharp and clear. Fleet Commander Val Soren, he said, offering his hand in the human gesture of greeting. I am Admiral James Chen. I have been appointed as the official liaison between your people and Earth's governments. Thyra took his hand carefully. Human hands were so small compared to Cathari hands, but his grip was strong and warm. Admiral Chen, she said, I thank you for your assistance. My people are grateful. Once our ships are repaired, we will leave your world and trouble you no more. Admiral Chen tilted his head. Leave? Where will you go? We will continue running. We will find somewhere to hide, somewhere the Drevith cannot find us. And how long will that last? Thyra did not answer. They both knew the truth. The Drevith would never stop hunting. There was nowhere to hide. Eventually, the Cathari would run out of places to run. Admiral Chen looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned and pointed at the shipyard around them. Thousands of humans working, hundreds of machines running, sparks flying as metal was cut and welded. The noise was incredible. Fleet Commander, he said, you came to us with broken ships and a dying fleet. You Ask for repairs, but I think you need more than repairs. We are not warriors, Thyra said. We do not fight, we preserve knowledge. We keep histories. That is all we have ever done. And that is beautiful work, Admiral Chen said. Important work. The galaxy needs people who remember, but the galaxy also needs people who protect those memories. You said someone is trying to burn your libraries. Where I come from, burning libraries is a crime that does not go unpunished. What are you suggesting? Admiral Chen reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. He pressed a button and a holographic image appeared. It showed the Cathari ships, but they looked different. They had been redesigned. They had weapons attached, guns and missiles and systems that Thyra did not recognize. Your ships have amazing technology, Admiral Chen said. Better materials than anything we have. Better power systems, better engines. But you never built them for fighting. We have been building things for fighting since we learned to pick up rocks. He turned off the device. Let us combine what you have with what we know. Let us rebuild your fleet. Not just repair it. Rebuild it. To what end? To end the Drevith, to make them pay for every ship they destroyed, every world they burned, every library they turned to ash. Thyra's hearts were beating fast. This was wrong. This went against everything her people believed. Violence was not the answer. Running was survival, but running had not saved them. Running had only delayed the inevitable. You would do this for us? She asked. You would fight a war against an empire you have never met, for strangers who landed on your world 3 days ago. Admiral Chen looked at Maria. Maria looked back at him. Something passed between them, some understanding that Thyra could not read. Fleet Commander, Admiral Chen said, humans have been looking up at the stars for thousands of years, wondering if we were alone. Now we know we are not alone. Now we know there are bullies out. They're burning libraries and killing innocents. His eyes grew hard. And if there is one thing humans hate more than anything else, it is a bully. At the thousands of humans working day and night, at the machines and tools and weapons being prepared, these primitives, these young creatures from a small blue world, they were offering something the Cathari had never had before. Hope, real hope. Not the hope of survival. The hope of victory. How long? She asked. Quietly. Admiral Chen smiled. 18 months. Give us 18 months and we will give you a fleet. That will make the Drevith wish they had never heard of you. Thyra closed her 4 eyes. She thought of her people, the dead and the dying, the runners and the hiders, the keepers of memory who had forgotten what it meant to fight for something. She opened her eyes. 18 months, she said. Make it count. Admiral Chen's smile grew wider. Oh, we will. Welcome to the team, Fleet Commander. Now let us get to work. Next 18 months changed everything. Thyra traveled across Earth during that time. She visited shipyards in America, factories in China, research labs in Germany, and technology centers in Japan. Everywhere she went, she found the same thing. Humans working, humans building, humans turning her broken fleet into something the galaxy had never seen before. It started with the reactors. The young engineer named Tommy had been right about the bottleneck, but fixing it was only the beginning. Human engineers studied the Cathari power systems and asked one simple question: what if we push them harder? The Cathari had always been careful with their reactors. They ran them at safe levels. They followed the rules. They never took risks. Humans did not understand the word safe the same way. We are overclocking your reactors, Maria explained one day. She was covered in grease and smiling as usual. We added cooling systems based on something we use for gaming computers. Your power output is now 300% higher than before. That should be impossible, Thyra said. A lot of things should be impossible. We do them anyway. The weapons came next. Cathari ships had never carried weapons. They were research vessels. They had scanners and sample collectors and observation systems. They were designed to study the universe, not to fight it. Human engineers looked at those systems and saw potential. The scanning arrays became targeting computers. They could track 1,000 objects at once and predict their movement with perfect accuracy. The sample collectors became missile launcher. The observation systems became the eyes of a predator. But the humans did not stop there. They added their own creations. Rail guns. Thyra watched the first test, firing from a safe distance. A piece of metal the size of her fist flew from the gun at incredible speed. It punched through a mountain on the other side of the testing range. The mountain cracked and fell. Kinetic impact, the human engineer explained proudly. No explosives needed. Just speed and mass, simple physics. Simple. Humans loved that word, but their simple physics could destroy mountains. Nuclear missiles came next. Thyra learned that humans had built weapons capable of destroying entire cities. They had thousands of these weapons. They had been pointing them at each other for nearly 100 years. You built planet killers, Thyra said, horrified. Admiral Chen nodded. We did, and then we realized that using them against each other was stupid, so we stopped. He smiled grimly, but we never forgot how to make them, and now we have a better target. The Cathari provided materials. Their hull plating was stronger than anything humans had ever made. Their shield technology could stop most energy weapons. Their engines could travel faster than light. Humans took all of it and made it deadly. The first new ship was completed 6 months ahead of schedule. They called it the Terra's Might. Thyra stood on its bridge and looked around. It was beautiful and terrifying. The walls were smooth Cathari metal, but the systems were human. Screens showed targeting data, consoles controlled weapon systems. The captain's chair had a human coffee cup holder attached to the armrest. We added that last part ourselves. Maria said, humans think better with coffee. 2,300 ships were built in those 18 months. Some were small and fast, designed to attack and run away. Some were large and powerful, built to stand and fight. Some carried special soldiers who would board enemy vessels and fight hand to hand. Boarding parties, Admiral Chen explained. We land soldiers inside the enemy ship. They take control from within. That is barbaric, Thyra said. Yes. That is the point. War is not supposed to be clean and pretty. War is supposed to be terrible. That is why you only do it when you have no other choice. The Cathari learned to fight during those months too. Not all of them became warriors. That was not their nature, but they learned to support the humans. They managed the computers. They maintained the ships. They kept the records of what was happening. Some Cathari did choose to fight, young ones mostly. They were angry. They had lost families to the Dravith. They wanted revenge. The humans welcomed them and trained them. Everyone fights in their own way. Maria told Thyra, some people use guns. Some people use computers. Some people use words. The important thing is that everyone contributes. On the last day of the 18th month, Thyra stood before the completed fleet. It floated in space above Earth, blocking out the stars. Thousands of ships, millions of weapons. The combined fury of two species. Admiral Chen stood beside her. He was wearing his best uniform. Behind them, the bridge crew prepared for departure. Are you ready, Fleet Commander? He asked. Thyra looked at him, this human, this small creature from a young world. He had given her something she never thought she would have again. I am ready, she said. But I must ask you one more time, why are you doing this? Why are you risking your people, your world for strangers? Admiral Chen was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. 3,000 years ago, a great library stood in a city called Alexandria. It held the knowledge of the ancient world, scrolls and books and wisdom from dozens of civilizations. His voice grew hard. Someone burned it. We still do not know exactly who or why. But we lost so much knowledge, so much history gone forever. He turned to face her directly. Your people keep the histories of 100 civilizations. You preserve the memories of the dead. You are everything that library could have been. His eyes were fierce, and someone is trying to burn you. Someone is trying to destroy everything you have saved. He put his hand on her shoulder. That is why we fight, because libraries matter, because memory matters, because some things are worth protecting, even if it costs everything. Thyra felt tears forming in her eyes. Cathari did not cry often, but in that moment she could not help it. Thank you, she whispered. Admiral Chen smiled. Do not thank us yet. We still have a war to win. He turned to the bridge crew. All ships prepare for faster than light travel. Set course for Dravith space. The fleet hummed with power. Engines activated. 2,300 ships prepared to jump into the unknown. Let us show them what happens when you mess with librarians, Admiral Chen said. The stars blurred, the fleet jumped, and the galaxy was about to learn a new word: consequences. Admiral Kethver of the Dravith hegemony was bored. He sat in his command chair aboard the Eternal Conquest and watched the stars drift past his view screen. 18 cycles he had been hunting the Cathari, 18 cycles of chasing librarians. Through empty space, it was beneath him. He was a conqueror. He had burned worlds and crushed civilizations. And now he was playing hunter to a bunch of archivists. When his sensors detected the Cathari fleet signature, he felt only mild satisfaction. Finally they had stopped running. Perhaps they had finally accepted that death was inevitable. He ordered 80 ships to intercept. More than enough. The Cathari had never been fighters. They would surrender or die. Either way, this hunt would finally be over. He had no idea what was waiting for him. The Dravith subjugation fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 80 warships, weapons, armed shields raised. They had done this 1,000 times before. Find the enemy, surround them, destroy them. But something was wrong, Commander. Thyrek, his second officer, stared at the sensor display with confusion on his face. Admiral, the Cathari fleet is different how? They have more ships, many more ships, and their signatures have changed. They are reading as unknown configurations. Kethver leaned forward. Show me. The view screen changed, and for the first time in his long career, Admiral Kethver felt cold fear crawl up his spine. Where there should have been 47 crippled research vessels, there was a fleet, a massive fleet, over 2,000 ships arranged in attack formation. Their hulls gleamed with new armor, their weapons ports glowed with power. They looked nothing like the broken refugees he had been hunting. They looked like predators. What is this? Kethver whispered. Before anyone could answer, a message came through on all Draveth frequencies. The face that appeared on the view screen was not Cathari, it was something else. Something Kethver had never seen before. The creature had only 2 eyes. Its skin was a strange pinkish brown. It was smiling, but the smile did not look friendly. It looked hungry. Admiral Kethver, the creature said. My name is Admiral James Chen of Earth. You have spent 18 cycles hunting our friends. You have killed their people. You have burned their ships. You have tried to destroy their libraries. The creature's smile grew wider. We are here to explain why that was a mistake. Kethver opened his mouth to respond. He never got the chance. The human fleet attacked. They did not move like any fleet Kethver had ever seen. There was no careful approach, no formal battle lines, no negotiation or warning shots. The human ships simply exploded forward, like animals released from cages. They were everywhere at once. Small ships darted through the Draveth formation, firing weapons that punched through shields like they were not there. Larger ships pounded Draveth vessels with railgun rounds that cracked hulls and shattered engines. Missiles flew in swarms, too many to count, too fast to stop. Return fire, Kethver screamed. All ships return fire. The Draveth weapons answered. Energy beams and plasma cannons lit up space. But the human ships were not where they should be. They dodged and weaved and spun in patterns that made no sense. Pilots flew their ships in ways that should have killed them, pulling maneuvers that pushed the limits of physics and sanity. And they were laughing. Kethver could hear them on the open communication channels, laughing and shouting and making jokes as they tore his fleet apart. Got one, a human voice called out. Nice shot, that makes 3 for me. 3, I have 5 already. You are slowing down, old man. They were keeping score. They were treating this battle like a game. One of Kethver's ships exploded, then another, then 3 more. Admiral, Commander Thyrek shouted, their smaller vessels are approaching our cruisers. They are attaching to the hulls. Attaching? Why would they attach? The answer came moments later. Reports flooded in from a dozen ships at once. Hulls breached, boarding parties inside. Humans with weapons fighting hand to hand through the corridors. The Draveth were warriors. They had conquered 100 species, but they had never seen anything like this. The humans fought with a ferocity that was almost insane. They used guns and knives, and their bare hands they pushed forward no matter how many fell. They seemed to have no fear at all. They are animals, Thyrek breathed. He was wrong. Animals killed to survive. These humans were killing because they were angry, because someone had hurt their friends. Because libraries had been burned. 11 minutes, that was how long it took. 11 minutes and 80 Dravith warships were gone, destroyed or captured or drifting. Dead in space. Admiral Kethfor's flagship was the last one standing, surrounded by human ships with weapons pointed at his bridge. The view screen flickered. Admiral Chen's face appeared again. He was still smiling. Admiral Kethfor, Chen said, "You have a choice. Surrender now and your surviving crew will be treated as prisoners of war. Fight and you will die. What is your decision?" Kethfor stared at the human. His mind was struggling to understand what had just happened. 80 ships, his entire subjugation fleet destroyed in 11 minutes. "What are you?" he whispered. Chen's smile faded. His eyes grew cold. "We are humanity. We come from a small planet called Earth. We spent 10,000 years learning how to kill each other. We got very, very good at it." He leaned closer to the screen. "And then we stopped because we realized we were only hurting ourselves. But we never forgot how." He paused. "You attacked our friends, you burned their libraries, you made us remember why we learned to be dangerous in the first place." His voice dropped to a growl. "And now you are going to learn what happens when you wake up a sleeping wolf." Kethfor looked at his crew. They were terrified. They had never been terrified before. The Dravith did not feel fear. They tossed fear. But now they understood. Now they knew what it felt like to be prey. "I surrender," Kethfor said. Admiral Chen nodded. "Marines, secure the vessel." The view screen went dark. Moments later, the hall shook as human boarding pods attached to the ship. Kethfor could hear them cutting through the metal, coming for him. Coming for all of them. On the bridge of the Terror Spite, Theora Valsarin stood in silence. Around her, human officers celebrated. They cheered and laughed and congratulated each other. Another victory, another step toward ending the Dravith threat. But Theora did not cheer. She was watching the human soldiers moving through the captured ships. She was watching the efficiency, the precision, the absolute certainty with which they operated. These were not primitives. These were not simple creatures from a young world. These were the most dangerous beings the galaxy had ever produced, and they had chosen to be her allies. Admiral Chen walked over to her. His smile was gone. His face was serious. "Are you all right, Fleet Commander?" Theora looked at him. "I am grateful and I am terrified of us, of what you could become, what you could do if you ever turned this fury against the innocent instead of the guilty." Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "That is a fair concern. We have done terrible things to each other throughout our history. We are not perfect. We are not always good." He met her eyes. "But we try to be better. Every generation, we try to be a little better than the one before. And we have learned after many painful lessons that protecting the innocent is more important than punishing the guilty." He put his hand on her shoulder. "We are not here for conquest, Fleet Commander. We are here for justice, and when justice is done, we will go home. I promise you that." Theora looked into his eyes. She saw the truth there, the hope. "I believe you," she said. Admiral Chen smiled. "Good, now come on. We have a war to finish." The fleet jumped to faster than light travel. Next stop, the Dravith home world. The wolves were awake, and they were Hungry, the war lasted 3 years. It should have lasted much longer. The Dravith hegemony had conquered 100 species across 1,000 systems. They had fleets beyond counting. They had weapons that had destroyed civilizations. They had never lost a war in their entire history. But they had never fought humans. Word of the first battle spread quickly. 80 Dravith warships destroyed in 11 minutes. The story seemed impossible. Many Dravith commanders refused to believe it. They thought it was propaganda, a lie to frighten them. They learned the truth soon enough. The human fleet moved through Dravith space like a storm. They did not conquer planets, they liberated them. Every world the Dravith had enslaved, the humans freed. Every species the Dravith had crushed, the humans helped rebuild. And every fleet the Dravith sent against them, the humans destroyed. The Cathari traveled with them, not as fighters but as witnesses. They recorded everything, every battle, every victory, every act of mercy, and every act of justice. They were doing what they had always done, keeping the history, preserving the memory. But this time the history was still being written. Thera watched as humans gave food and medicine to the liberated populations. She watched as human engineers helped rebuild destroyed cities. She watched as human soldiers played with children who had never known a day without fear. These violent creatures, these wolves of Earth, they destroyed their enemies without hesitation, but they treated the innocent with a gentleness that made Thera want to cry. "You are confusing," she told Admiral Chen one day. He laughed. "We confuse ourselves most of the time. We are complicated. We contain contradictions. We can be cruel and kind, selfish and generous, terrible and beautiful. That is what it means to be human." The final battle came at the Dravith home world. The hegemony had gathered every ship. They had left 1,000 vessels, surrounded their planet ready to fight. To the death they had no choice. The humans had made it clear, surrender or be destroyed. The supreme commander of the Dravith broadcast a message to the human fleet. His voice was proud and defiant. "You may have won battles, but you not win this war. We are the Dravith hegemony. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. We will never surrender to primitives from an unknown world." Admiral Chen responded calmly. "You ruled through fear, you conquered. Through cruelty, you burned libraries and killed innocents." His voice grew hard. "That ends today. This is your last chance. Surrender now. And your people will live. Your leaders will face justice, but your civilization will survive. Never. Then we will make the choice for you." The battle began. It was the largest space battle recorded history. 1,000 Dravith ships against 2,000 human vessels. The sky above the Dravith home world burned with weapons fire. Ships exploded like stars being born and dying in moments. The Dravith fought with everything they had. They were desperate. They were cornered. They had nothing left to lose. But the humans fought like they had everything to gain. The Cathari ships hung back from the battle as they always did. Their screens recorded everything. Their archivists wrote down every detail. Centuries from now, beings would study this battle and wonder how it was possible. Slowly, inevitably, the Dravith fell. Their ships were destroyed one by one. Their commanders were captured or Killed, their defenses crumbled under the relentless human assault. After 6 hours, the Supreme Commander sent a new message. His voice was broken now. His pride was gone. We surrender. In the name of the Draveth hegemony, we surrender. Please, no more. Admiral Chen's response was simple. Smart choice. The war was over. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy learned what human justice looked like. The Draveth leaders were put on trial. Not executed without question, not tortured or humiliated. They were given lawyers and evidence and a fair hearing. Many of them were found guilty of terrible crimes. They were imprisoned for life, but they were not killed. Humans did not believe in revenge. They believed in justice. There was a difference. The Draveth people were not punished. They were given a chance to rebuild. Human advisors helped them create a new government, one that did not rule through fear. Why? One Draveth official asked. We were your enemies. We would have destroyed you. Why do you help us now? The human advisor smiled. Because turning enemies into friends is better than making more enemies. Because your children should not suffer for the crimes of their parents. Because kindness is stronger than cruelty, even if it does not seem that way at first. The Draveth did not understand, but they accepted the help, and slowly over time they began to change. Thyra returned to Earth 3 years after she had first arrived. The Pearl Harbor shipyard looked different now. It was bigger, more advanced. Catharian humans worked side by side, building ships that would explore the galaxy together. She found Maria Santos exactly where she expected, under a ship covered in grease, fixing something that probably was not broken. Maria, Thyra called out. The human woman slid out from under the ship. Her hair was grayer now. Her face had more lines, but her smile was exactly the same. Commander, she jumped to her feet and hugged Thyra tightly. Humans did that. They touched each other when they were happy. Thyra had grown to love it. I wanted to thank you, Thyra said when Maria finally let go. For everything. You saved my people. You saved the galaxy. You took broken ships and broken spirits and made something incredible. Maria shrugged. You needed help. We helped. That is what friends do. You are more than friends. You are family now. The Cathari will never forget what you did. Maria's smile softened. Good, because we are not going anywhere. There is a whole galaxy out there to explore, new civilizations to meet, new histories to record. She grinned. And probably a few more bullies who need to learn their lesson. Thyra laughed. It was a sound she had not made often before coming to Earth. Now she made it all the time. Will you come with us? She asked. Into the stars. Maria looked up at the sky. The stars were fading in the morning light, but they were still there, waiting. Someone has to keep the ships running, she said, and I have always wanted to see what else is out there. They stood together in silence for a moment. Human and Cathari, mechanic and commander, two beings from different worlds who had become something closer than friends. The galactic archive is almost complete, Thyra said. The building on your moon, the one that will hold the histories of every known civilization. I heard it is beautiful. There is an inscription above the entrance in 100 languages. We remember, we preserve, and we protect. Thyra smiled. The human delegation asked us to add Something below it. What did they want to add? She pressed. A button and a holographic image appeared. It showed the archive entrance with the main inscription carved in stone. And below it in smaller letters was the Human Edition. Maria read it and burst out laughing. The sound echoed across the shipyard. Workers stopped and looked up, confused by the sudden joy. Perfect, Maria said through her laughter. Absolutely perfect. Thyra smiled. I thought you would approve. Above them the sun rose over Earth. New day was beginning, a new era for the galaxy. An era where knowledge was protected, where the innocent were defended, and where those who burned libraries learned that there were consequences. The Cathari had come to Earth looking for repairs. They found something much better. They found humanity. And the galaxy would never be the same. The inscription on the Galactic Archive read, "We remember, we preserve, and we protect." And below it in smaller letters, mess around and find out. The humans had wanted a different word at the beginning, but they agreed to make it polite for the children who would visit. The meaning was exactly the same.